Hello there everybody, welcome back to my Flight Sim X series. Let's learn how to fly together. And right now we are actually going to go ahead and take a step up from the Cessna. And we're actually going to fly a Learjet, namely the Bombardier Learjet 45. If I can find it. There we go. I'm gonna fly the anniversary edition here, doesn't really matter. Just pick the Bombardier Learjet 45. And this is kind of the stepping stone between the Cessna, by the way. If you haven't seen the Cessna video series, 10 videos I think, roughly, do watch them, otherwise this won't make any sense. But yeah, this is a stepping stone between the simple prop aircraft like a Cessna and, you know, the biggest of the big, really cool aircrafts. In the case of FSX, that would be the 747. So it's kind of in the middle ground here, and it's our first jet, so it's going to be very exciting. Let's click Flight Planner. Let's quickly load a flight plan, and we're going to pick the same flight plan that we've flown before, all right? So Biggin Hill in England to Octeville, Le Havre, France. We already know the route, so that's our advantage here. It's set to be parking 1. That's cool. We probably don't want to be in general aviation small in real life, but for now I'm just going to load the same exact flight plan. It's not really going to matter. Just make sure to select high altitude airways. You can click the find route, and this should be looking very, very, very what's the word? You should know this. You should recognize this. This should look very familiar. That's the word. I'll set it to, I think it automatically set to flight level 260. That's okay for us. We're probably not going to reach that altitude because it's hard on such a short route if you don't want to really go very steep, and we don't really want to do that. But whatever, don't matter. Okay. Yes, save it, override. And yes, move the aircraft. Click current time and season change, reset, okay. That sets it up at about 1 p.m. Fair weather, everything looking good. One thing before we hit the fly now button like we would in a Cessna is we actually do go ahead and look at the fuel and payload now. This aircraft has a lot of capacity for fuel, but you don't really want to land it on full fuel tanks. That's why you can dump fuel in jets. So what we're going to do, since we're flying such a short route, is we're just going to take about 20% of fuel in all tanks. And that should mean that we kind of have a fairly light aircraft when it comes to landing. Change payload. We could already also take away 2 passengers here. Let's say we have 2 passengers and 2 pilots in this aircraft and about 100 pounds of luggage or baggage. There we go. Cool. All right, and that's everything set up, I believe. Yep. Let's click the Fly Now button. One thing while we're loading in that I do want to mention, I have to mention, is there is an issue in FSX where it will start you out in a jet with the engines running, but it won't actually put on the parking brake, okay? So what this means is in a jet, we'll actually start moving forward, and that's not good. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually going to press Control and period right now. Okay, so immediately when we load it in, I put Control and period, hit them at the same time, and what this does, it uses your parking brake right away. And otherwise, you just start moving forward, and that kind of sucks. Let's hide the menu bar here really quickly. There we go. So this is the cockpit. Welcome. Welcome aboard the Learjet 45. It looks a little bit more interesting compared to the Cessna, doesn't it? I like it. I think it's really cool. It looks more like an actual machine than just a simple tool. Alright, and the first thing we always do is we actually talk to ATC. And we will tune to the tower and request a flight clearance.
Tower, Bombardier, November 45, Lima, Romeo, IFR, Le Havre, ready to copy.
Bombardier, November 45, Lima, Romeo is cleared to the airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain 5,000. Departure frequency is 129.4, squawk 3274.
Alright, fly runway heading. We don't know which runway yet, but we'll keep that in mind. And we'll go to 5,000 feet. And I already pre-configured the autopilot for 5,000 feet. Let's acknowledge that clearance.
Bombardier, November 45, Lima, Romeo, cleared Le Havre Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain 5,000. Departure on 129.4, squawk 3274.
Bombardier 5, Lima, Romeo, read that correct. Contact ground on 134.8.
All right, now we can contact ground if we do want to request a taxi clearance. I've already pre-configured this. This is the auto throttle, a new thing the Cessna didn't have. Basically another autopilot that's separate from the rest of the autopilot that actually allows you to control your throttle as well. So this thing right here, the throttle quadrant. Let's request taxi clearance here as soon as possible.
Contact tower on 134.8 when ready. Big and ground, Bombardier, November 45, Lima, Romeo, with Echo, ready to taxi IFR. Bombardier, November 45, Lima, Romeo, taxi to and hold short of runway 3, using taxiway hotel. Contact tower on 134.8 when ready.
I don't know why they're clearing me for the same way that this Cessna is doing, but well, whatever. Guess that's Flight Sim ATC for you. Anyways, turn on progressive taxi, release the parking brake, and hold Shift and P. And I just pressed Shift and P, so now we're actually pulling back, just like we would in the Cessna. And we'll just push back just a little bit so we can make the turn. And that should be enough, so Shift and P again. And that stops the pushback. And now we can actually grab a controller. I'm using, still using the gamepad. To be specific, the Xbox 360 gamepad. And now when it comes to taxiing, what we want to do is we just want to give it a bit of throttle here. Wait until we catch up a little bit of speed, and then you can actually hit F1 on your keyboard to pull the throttle lever back to idle, and that should allow you to just get a little bit of momentum going and allows you to taxi properly here. Right now we're going a little bit slow, about 6 knots, but that's okay because we're doing a very sharp turn right here, and once we're in the clear, I'm just going to give it throttle again and then pull back to idle, and we should be just fine. There we go. Now it's straight ahead. So let's put up the throttle again. Line up. There we go. As you can see, I have 20% of throttle right now. I'm getting back on the taxi line here. And at about 20 knots, probably, well, let's say 18. I'm just going to hit F1. So now we're back at idle. And that just gives us nice momentum and should carry us, hopefully, all the way, sorry, all the way to the actual hold short line to runway 3. So we already know that runway 3 is going to be our takeoff runway, so that's good. Actually going to brake here just a little bit, we're going a bit too fast. So that's good, so that means we can already pre-configure the heading bug as well. This is our heading bug, just like in the Cessna. So runway 3 means heading of 030, and I can already, excuse me, enable that part of the autopilot because heading and altitude are all part of the autopilot master switch. Okay, so as soon as I hit that, everything will work. But since I didn't have that selected yet, nothing is going to happen, and that's obviously what we want since we're still on the ground. As I said, the auto throttle here is a different thing. If I actually click this right now, it would enable the auto throttle, and it would try to bring us up to 220 knots immediately, and that would obviously be bad. Could also turn on the yaw damper. Not really going to explain what this does. You can Google it yourself. It's not that important right now. We can also set flaps to the first stage, 8-degree flaps for takeoff. Turn on the taxi lights. Should have done that just a little bit earlier. Actually turn on all the lights, and the rest of the lights here unfortunately are not modeled. And let's set up our trim. Trim is visualized here, and we're going to go down to a trim of 2.5, I guess. Looks good. Just brake a little bit for the corner here. And let's turn this aircraft around. There we go. And right here you can see there's already a Cessna holding, actually making it on top of the runway right now, and it's going to take off just a little bit before us here. What you see right here is actually the hold short line, so don't exceed that when you're waiting in front of a runway, like so. When we're stopped, we actually do want to enable the emergency brake, rather the parking brake, of course. And now we're here, and we can request takeoff clearance, which they will probably not give us because there's still traffic on the runway, as we can see here.
Bombardier November 4, Lima Romeo, hold short, runway 3, traffic is Cessna Skyhawk onto runway. Bombardier November 4, Lima Romeo, taxi into position and hold.
All right,
Position and hold. Bombardier 5 Lima Romeo.
let's get rid of that parking brake. And let's taxi. Same thing. Giving it a bit of throttle here. Well, we don't have takeoff clearance yet. We're actually going to switch to GPS because we're going to fly into from the heading bug, and then we're going to resume own navigation, and once that happens we want to fly on GPS mode. That's why I pre-selected GPS right there. So we're told to hold, now that's what we're going to do here. And again, parking brake. And we get takeoff clearance here. Let's acknowledge that.
Bombardier November 4-5 Lima Romeo.
Do a quick check. Everything's set up. Spoilers are set. Flaps 8. Spoilers set means they're in, by the way. They're not extended, obviously. Yeah, lights need to be off here. Taxi lights, that is. Everything else looks good. So autopilot is pre-configured, 5,000 feet. All throttle pre-configured. Heading is pre-configured. At this point, what we need to do is release the parking brake and take off. And the way to do that is actually to give it just a bit of throttle first. I have it on 40% right now. And let the engines, what's called, stabilize. Just wait for a second or two. And now we're going to get toga, take off, and go around power, which is 100%. There we go. Stay centered. 80 knots. Should be around V1. And take off. I'm going to take off with trim, okay? I'm just using the trim, and look that up. Watch my video. Positive rate of climb, so gear in, flaps in. And that's cool. Reduce the throttle a little bit. Auto throttle on, and autopilot on, and we're in the air. Acknowledge the handoff as well.
Bombardier 5 Lima Romeo. Taken departure. Bombardier November 4-5 Lima Romeo is climbing through 2,200 for 5,000.
Bombardier November 4-5 Lima Romeo, begin departure, roger. Altimeter 2992. Bombardier 5 Lima Romeo, turn right.
Turn right heading 175.
Climb and maintain 5,000.
175.
Turn right heading 1.
And there we go.
Resume on navigation. Climb and maintain 5,000.
And we're already set for 5,000.
Romeo.
Bombardier 5 Lima Romeo, contact Heathrow approach on 119.
Another handoff. And from this point on, we're in the air, everything's set up, flaps are in, gear is up, so we're literally doing the same thing we did in the Cessna, basically, getting handoffs and following the ATC instructions with our heading buck here. It's pretty busy airspace right now, so I have to wait to acknowledge the handoff. There we go. Got my message in here.
Lima Romeo. Taken departure. Bombardier November 4-5 Lima Romeo is climbing through 4,400 for 5,000.
Bombardier November 4-5 Lima Romeo, begin departure, roger. Altimeter 2992. Bombardier 5 Lima Romeo, turn right.
Turn right heading 205.
Squawk 7726 Cessna Papa Golf X-ray.
Bombardier 5 Lima Romeo, turn right heading 205.
Climb and maintain 1,500, 15,000 even. There we go. 1,500 is what that should be.
Turn right heading 205. Climb and maintain.
Turning right heading 205 and climb and maintain 15,000. Alright,